Everybody, it is day 216 and the high in my area is 96 degrees. It is super hot outside. So we're sticking with the varsity goal. For the next row, we're going to do 3 double crochets in the first space and every other space all the way down to the end, and we're going to end with 1 double crochet. I hope everyone enjoys their day, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Guys, so last week I went on a road trip. Well, it's a little over a week ago now, and then this coming week I'm going on another road trip. And last week's road trip was crazy, so I wanted to look into other road trips, hear other people's road trip stories. I'm fingers crossed that this road trip will be smooth sailing and we'll just have fun. But I just want to share with you some crazy, funny, interesting road trip stories from Reddit. So there'll be a few. We're going to start with this one. It says, what's a funny road trip story that you have? This one says, between my previous and current jobs, I took the summer off for a solo motorcycle trip around the country, taking mostly back roads whenever I could. At one point, I was approaching a very small farm town in southern Illinois when I started seeing people by the side of a road. They weren't doing anything, just standing there watching me. The closer I got to the town, the more people I saw, and based on its size, it seemed like they must all be out there. There was no traffic or any other activity, just rows of unsmiling people standing there silently watching me. Looking ahead, I can see even more people, all turned to face me, as if they were all waiting for me. I was getting a creepier and creepier Children of the Corn vibe until I got into town and realized what was going on. Apparently, it was some kind of local holiday, and there was a parade scheduled for that day. And by a random coincidence, I happened to ride in just before the parade was set to start. That's funny. Okay, this other one says, friends and I were visiting Boston when we were trying to get this candlepin bowling alley, and it turned out that it was on the other side of the city from where we were. One of my friends didn't want to pay the subway fare to get there, so we ended up walking for over 2 hours from one end of the city to another, walking through some shady parts too. When we finally got there, it turns out the place was closed. I was ready to strangle him. I think that was pretty funny, but you probably had to be there. Okay, so let's read another one. This says, what is your most memorable family road trip story? It's very short. It says, not that interesting, but funny. My parents and I were stuck in heavy traffic on this bridge over the ocean, and this truck in front of us was covered with bees. I guess they were transporting boxes of bees. Well, we had our windows down, and we were fighting off bees for the rest of the car trip. Yikes! I'm allergic to bees, so I would have screamed the whole ride. Okay. So this one says, what's your weirdest, craziest road trip story? It says, back in late 2016, I went on a road trip to Montana with a few of my friends. We're around 24 hours away, so we took turns driving and sleeping about every 4 hours. At around the 18-hour mark, everyone was so exhausted and we needed to fill up again. So we went to a local 24/7 gas station to take a nap in the car for about an hour or two. Well, that nap turned out to be 6 hours. Someone knocked on our window, waking us up. I thought he wanted to ask if we were okay, but no. I still remember his face, the ish-eating grin like he found a pot of gold. He kept telling us about Ethereum and how it would change our lives. On the way back, I went to look it up and bought a bunch around $7. Now, I don't know what to do with all this money. That man changed my life. I wish I could pay him back somehow. But yeah, Ethereum is like $1,694 right now. I'm holding this year until it hits $20,000. Wow. Okay, this one says, okay, so me and my husband were traveling in northern Pakistan. The place is beautiful with spectacular view and foods and all the facilities we would need in a trip. But one fine day, we decided to go on an adventure visiting a valley that was recently been cleared for development. You can best describe the valley as nature in its original form. There weren't any residents or houses or even paved roads when we got there via Jeep. Since the road wasn't paved, we hired a mountain Jeep. The journey was quite bumpy because of all the mountain rocks. The crazy part begins now. It was an 8-hour round trip to our hotel. On our way, I felt an instant need to use the restroom. I can speak restroom. Yes, and there weren't any restrooms nearby as the place was new and still not developed. We asked the driver for locating the restroom. Now, with each bump, I felt the more urge. I was horrified, imagining what I would do. Then he located a tiny local house and requested them that I need to use their restroom. Relieved by the sudden discovery, I hurriedly went to the lady of the house and she showed me the restroom. The interesting part begins now. To my horror, when I entered the restroom, it was just an empty room with lots of mud in it and nothing else. No toilet rolls, no water, nothing. I was disgusted by the scene and could see the house members among the mud. Luckily, I had a toilet paper in my backpack, so I went on with my business as I couldn't hold it anymore, and it still has somehow still better than peeing my pants. Till this day, I'm horrified by what and how I had done that on that day. P.S. The trip was 10 out of 10, was enjoyed a lot, but then this one was our own fault. Okay, so this one says, about 2 to 3 years ago, mother, brother, and myself were making a 5-hour road trip to see some family. At the time, I smoked a stupid amount of weed, which despite being illegal here, mother was fine with. And usually when I myself am driving, I stop every hour or so for a bong. Well, mother isn't the biggest fan of constant stops and just likes to get there. She was driving for this particular leg of the trip, and sure enough, despite her really not wanting to, I got her to stop at this scenic lookout so I can smoke a cheeky one. For a good half an hour prior to stopping, we've been following a car towing cage-type trailer that was swaying around looking rather dodgy, but didn't really think that much of it. Anyway, I smoked my zonker and we hit the road again. About 10 to 15 minutes after continuing our trip, we can faintly see mentioned car and trailer in the distance. Slowly but surely catching up again, more and more, when all of a sudden this whole cage blows right off of the trailer. Chassis slides, tumbles along the road for about 50 meters before going off the road down in a ditch. We would have been about 300 meters behind when we watched this unfold. But basically what I'm getting at is if I hadn't hassled my mom for my smoke will stop and we were still directly behind the vehicle, there's a very high chance I wouldn't be sitting here typing this right now. Wow. That reminds me of Final Destination. So that's crazy. The next story, not exactly mine, but a distant friend. They had a road trip with their fam to get 2 of their younger kids' wisdom tooth removed. They were both around 17 and 18, I think. They really didn't like the car ride back home, just that random gibberish for a 6 to 7 hour road trip. Going from their house in one country, a family gathering in the next, and a family friend who is a dentist at the other side of the country with a family gathering. Needless to say, I don't think they enjoyed it. Okay, so this one is titled, what is your best, worst, and or most memorable road trip story? This one says, when me and a couple of friends were on our way home from another friend's house after we got toasted and ended up 2.5 hours away from our house in a different state. Wow, that's horrible. This one says, 9 years ago, my husband and I flew to Germany for a long weekend with one plan. We met up with a Romanian gaming buddy, drove to the Air Force Base so he could try American junk food. And we had been discussing Kentucky Fried Chicken. I told him that Popeyes was better. Turns out that the only source of it overseas was on military bases. So we introduced him to Popeyes, Taco Bell, and Cinnabon. Best weekend ever. Someone asked, what was your friend's favorite food? And said he loves the chicken. I admit the spicy chicken is why I prefer Popeyes as well. He also liked the dirty rice. Though the maple syrup we bought him got used with sparkling water drinks. Okay. Let's see. This one's titled Redditors, what is the most absurd road trip story? We needed to get extra gas money, so we invited this lower grade kid with us who was rich. Oh, that's horrible. Started with him showing us an ounce of weed he had stolen from a dealer, and the rest of the trip, he had to hear him stress out about it after finding out the dealer had paid someone for his address. Every day we had to tell this kid what not to do. Like if we were at a gas station, you had to tell him not to light a joint while the car was getting its gas, or when he was fiending over something, you had to tell him not to ask random strangers in LA. Good kid though, he's in prison now. Okay, weird one. Okay, so the next story is years ago in the U.S. Army Reserve, we spent 2 weeks in Denver, Colorado area, and a few of us decided to rent a car and stop at a Renaissance fair and then proceed to the Royal Gorge. After a few fun hours at the fair, we prepared to leave for the gorge and had a road map. This was before the days of smartphones and public GPS. Looking at the map, we would have to circle a long ways back to hit the freeway and drive in a big circle to get there. That didn't make sense to my group of highly trained soldiers, nurses, and doctors. So we found a shortcut via the Phantom Canyon Road. It started off well, but that road kept getting smaller until it was one lane through mountains, such that you may have to back up if you meet an oncoming car. Not much concern of a collision because we were driving under 20 miles per hour now. We passed a lonely outhouse at some point with a sign stating the name of the village. We made it to the gorge right after they closed for the day. We were beaten by our own shortcut and laughed about it all the way back on the freeway, which shaved hours off of our journey. Okay, I think this is the last thread. It's a really short stories. So this one says, the title of this one is What's the Best Road Trip Story? It says, from New York, and my family and I drove to California for my 16th birthday. It was either a sweet 16 or a road trip. Obviously, I chose the road trip. Best vacation of my life. Nothing was planned, and it was pack up and go. I met so many wonderful people and saw so many awesome views. We went to Graceland, Elvis House as a detour. When we got to Cali, I didn't want to leave. Took us about 1 week to get there. We spent about a whole month on the road. We were going to go again this year for my sister's sweet 16, but COVID is here. Oh, okay. So this is the next one. A friend and I were drunk one night and decided we wanted to quit our jobs and travel. It started out as a joke, but the next morning we quit, packed up the car, and headed for California. By the time we got to Santa Cruz, we were nearly out of money, so we did some day labor jobs for a while to save up. When we headed to San Fran, where we would totally ran out of money, she called it quits and headed home, and I've been here ever since. Wow. Okay, so that was the last story. If you have any road trip stories you want to share, you can put them in the comments. I'm hoping my next road trip is a lot of fun. It's a girls trip, so hopefully me and my friends just have fun, relaxing, no car trouble or anything like that. So I hope you enjoyed these short stories, and I hope you enjoyed this video.